Hi, Shavua Tov. A very interesting article. I discovered a very interesting article that I think sheds some new light on the notion of Lulav Hagazul, a stolen Lulav, and therefore mitzvah haba bidei avera, a mitzvah that comes as a result of the transgression. And I'd like to review it with you. Indulge me the 15 minutes that this tape is going to last. I hope I could finish it in 15 minutes. The question then is as follows. Does religion take moral and ethical considerations into account, or does it turn a blind eye to them? Is a religious act valid no matter what? Or is it only valid if the ethical and moral actions leading up to the religious act meet the standards? Can one buy a sacrifice, a korban, a gift to the temple with stolen money and bring it to the temple? Or, in our time, to the synagogue? Can you cheat on your income tax and use your money to donate to charity? So here are a couple of biblical quotes from the Tanakh. And if I could move my text, there we go. Okay, the first one is in the book of Amos, chapter 2, verse 8. Okay, they recline, the sinners, recline by every altar at the temple on garments they have taken as a pledge from poor people, and drink in the house of their God wine bought with fines they imposed. So they imposed fines on the poor, and then they got themselves a pleasure out of it. In both cases, Amos speaks against it. In Isaiah 61, no conditions, by the way, just a straight no. Isaiah 61, for I, the Lord, love justice. I hate robbery with a burnt offering. Namely, you can't bring a burnt offering to the temple with money from robbery. No conditions, no ifs, no buts. Malachi. And you bring the stolen, the lame, the sick, and you offer such a sacrifice or a gift. Will I accept it from you? Says the Lord. Malachi. Okay, so this requires a bit of an explanation. In Leviticus, we were told that only animals that may not be brought to the altar or have a physical defect. Okay, those are not acceptable. Kol asher bomum lo takrivu. Okay, it's not acceptable. However, Malachi, in this previous verse that we just did, you bring stolen, lame, and sick. But in Leviticus, when the criteria were given, it was only physical defect, and here Malachi adds an ethical defect. Okay, this should ring bells and light lights for our cases. Okay. When a man offers from the herd or the flock a sacrifice of well-being to the Lord for an explicit vow, it must be acceptable, be without a blemish. To be acceptable, it has to be without a blemish, and there must be no defect in it. Anything blind or injured or maimed, all these physical characteristics are given, only Malachi adds the criteria that you cannot bring that which is stolen. However, the Torah only looks at physical defects. Let it continue. Okay, so we have from Malachi a new criteria, either a physical defect or an ethical defect. God does not want them according to Malachi. Now, going on, there are two potential reasons why a lulav which is stolen is invalid. I will first explain what stolen means. Stolen means not only, if I could find that quote, I left it somewhere. I'll come back to it when I cross it. Okay, but there is a definition of what it means to be stolen. Here we go. On the first day of Sukkot, we are told as follows. So this is the first reason why a stolen lulav is not acceptable. Ulekachtem lachem bayom harishon. You will take onto yourself on the first day. Lachem, the Talmud explains, lachem, this extra word means mishel lachem velo gazul. Rabbi suggests that the extra word lachem is understood to mean that person's lulav must be their own and not one that was stolen. Notice, please, no conditions. It always has to be yours and not stolen, no matter what. That's the opinion of this first piece of why we may not accept a stolen lulav. Now I move from the Jerusalem Talmud to the Babylonian Talmud. The Babylonian Talmud, get it ready in your head, has two positions. Okay, the first, Rabbi Yochanan in the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. We're talking about people who lived around the year 200, 250. Keep it in mind for later. Performing a mitzvah with a stolen item is considered a commandment that is fulfilled through a transgression. Mitzvah haba'a be'avera. Such a mitzvah is always forbidden. Like the case in the Yerushalmi, it is always. So here, too, it is always. However, the Babylonian Talmud has a very interesting additional position. Okay, Shmuel, an early Babylonian rabbi, it has to be your own only on the first day of the holiday. Shmuel argues that verse, Ulekachtem lachem. Where is it? I'm doing well. Ulekachtem lachem bayom harishon, on the first day. So according to Shmuel, it has to be your own only on the first day. But on subsequent days, it may be. There are 8 days on Sukkot. So there are days on which it may be borrowed. It doesn't have to be your own. And it may even be stolen. So here we go now to the Babylonian. It has to be your own only on the first day. This only applies to the first day of Yom Tov, but on the second day of Yom Tov, just like you can use a borrowed lulav, you can use a stolen lulav. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai declares a stolen lulav is invalid in all situations. That was the case we had above. In all situations, because it's a mitzvah through a transgression. Mitzvah haba bidei avera. Shmuel says that it is invalid only on the first day of Sukkot. The reasoning comes from a midrash, the verse that mentions the word for yourself. You shall take it for yourself on the first day, as we said above. On the other days, we can be lenient. That's the position of Shmuel. He's a contemporary, but Shmuel lives in Babylonia, and all the rabbis are from Israel. Whether they're in the Jerusalem Talmud or the Babylonian Talmud, they're Israel rabbis. Shmuel lives in Babylonia. According to Shmuel, then, the defect is not an ethical one, the fact that it's stolen, but the technical point that it has to be yours, lachem. Rambam agrees with this position. It has to be lachem only on the first day. According to this view, the prohibition of using a stolen lulav is not based on the moral issue, but is identical to the prohibition of using a borrowed lulav. On the first day of the festival, everyone is obligated to use a lulav that is their own, shelachem. Stolen or borrowed lulavs do not qualify. I hope you could concentrate for this. The fact that it is stolen, therefore, is a mitzvah fulfilled through an Aveira is not part of the equation for Shmuel. Shmuel negates the entire principle of mitzvah through sin, so an ethical defect does not ruin a ritual act. I have 5 minutes left on the tape. Now let's come to Mr. Ellman. Since the Babylonian Talmud is the backbone of Jewish law, it should not surprise us that most halacha follow Shmuel, namely, trying to find a lenient position for an unethical behavior in charity. Nonetheless, there are those who follow the ethical principle and negate such donations. It seems that the rabbis of Eretz Israel follow the Mishnah and follow Malachi, and they have a strict ruling: Lulav Hagazul is invalid. No discussion. The Babylonian Talmud does not reject the strictest position, but rather limits it. Lulav Hagazul is disallowed on the first day only. By doing this, it cancels the ethical moral element through a transgression. Mitzvah haba bidei avera. Shmuel's position is generous for a situation that requires leniency. But overall, I guess that in our time, most of us would be uncomfortable if our religion would allow charity and charitable acts that come from mitzvot and charities that come through sin, theft. People arguing that we should accept the money, those arguing that we should accept the money, could conclude by saying that the Babylonian Talmud was codified 150 years after the Jerusalem Talmud, and the position of Shmuel reflects an evolution of Jewish law, that the law gradually developed and became more lenient. I'm going to stop here. You may have to listen to this tape more than once to follow it, because the logic is pretty tough. Shavua Tov. I'll see you in class.